Is America coming apart at the seams? The Democrats, Socialists, have had great big wins this last week. Mamdani, the mayor of New York City. We have other Democrats, Socialists, Communists that are running elsewhere on the Democratic ticket. Not only so, but we have the old line Bernie Sanders, Socialists. The Democratic Party has turned into the Socialist Party of America, and socialism is nothing less than communism. Communism is simply socialism at the point of a gun. That's all that socialism is, and that's what communism is. Mamdani is a communist, a socialist. But I don't want to just talk about Mamdani here for a moment, but I would like to back up, and I would like for you to think about how it is that the Founding Fathers created a system, a constitutional system that was designed to curtail and to forestall this very thing, that is, the move to a big totalitarian government system where the government takes care of everyone. That's what the founders created. How did we get to this particular position? Well, and in a large measure, it comes about because the Democratic Party has become lawless in America. And they have for many years stood for lawlessness. One of the areas that shows the lawlessness of the Democratic Party and those who support them is the issue regarding the border. Now, I want you to think about what the United States Code, the U.S. Code number 8, in its section 1325, as is written in the law pertaining to the border. And here, this was framed by Congress to curtail improper entry by aliens. Quote, any alien who, one, enters or attempts to enter the U.S. at any time or place other than as designated by immigration officers, or, number two, eludes examination or inspection by immigration officers, shall be fined and imprisoned not more than 6 months. And then subsequent arrests increased jail time. This was framed, this is the law, framed by Republicans and Democrats, and our constitutional system is to operate through law. But the Democrats, Joe Biden, before him Barack Obama, they disrespected the law. They allowed millions and millions of illegals to come in, particularly in the Biden administration, and not a word of objection from any Democrat lawmaker whatsoever. And now, President Trump, thankfully, is wanting to get them out, that is the illegals out. But who is objecting? The Democrats. So here's the point, and that is, are they going to work through the law? Evidently not. That is, the Democrats are not intending to work through the law. They openly, proudly violate the law of the United States by insisting on an open border and retaining those who have crossed an open border. So ICE, that is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Organization, seeking to remedy what the Biden administration thumbed its nose at for so long. And by the way, they led up to about 12 million illegals into the country that are threatening to change our culture, our way of life, our safety, our taxes, our health care, and much more. That's why the Democrats right now have the government in a headlock, and that is to shut it down until we allow the illegal aliens to be funded in their health care by American taxpayers. Not only that, but Democrats in Democrat-controlled cities are allowing not only uncontrolled immigration and seeking to protect them from ICE agents, but now they're offering, in many cases, bounties, that is, many people are offering bounties on the heads of law enforcement. That is difficult to believe that Democrats and the Democratic Party supports this, but this is exactly what's going on in our country. The Democratic Party, the Socialistic Party of America, and if you're a Democrat, you're a socialist at this point. But the Democratic Socialist Party in America is supporting people who are putting bounties on the head of ICE agents, that is law enforcement, trying to enforce the law that was passed by Congress. The point of all of this is the Democrats don't care for law. They're lawbreakers. They are lawbreakers sitting in office where they are supposedly lawmakers. Paul tells us in 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 9, the Apostle Paul says that law is not made for the righteous man, but for the lawless and unruly, for lawbreakers. And that would be, of course, the Democrats. Now, add to all of this, we have, as far as this cultural context is concerned, drug cartels from Mexico have become so strong that they also are placing bounties on the heads of law enforcement. And these kingpins of drug cartels, Mexican drug cartels, are right here in Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, New York City. They're here in the United States, and they're putting bounties on the heads of law enforcement. Now, even added to that, hard to believe, but Democratic lawmakers, they're the lawbreakers, are now have created an online tracker of ICE agents. Quote, the shutdown Democrats are already refusing to pay our law enforcement agents, and now Representative Robert Garcia and Senator Blumenthal are trying to put ICE agents at risk for just doing their jobs. So, end of quote. So says Pam Bondi on a post on the platform X. And she refers to Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat from California, Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut. Pam Bondi herself, according to The Hill, has become a target of an assassination. Openly on social media. This is exactly what the Democrat, and have they toned down the rhetoric? Have they backed people off? Have they actually said that they want to tell their constituents not to? No, they're ratcheting it up. I tell you, Democrats want to shut down the government, and they want war in our government. They want these assassinations. This is what they want, and they want to turn around and blame President Trump for trying to uphold the law of the United States. That is exactly what's going on. So, for example, Democrat from Washington, Jayapal, Representative Pramila Jayapal, she shared a sob story about an ICE agent supposedly abusing a pregnant illegal woman, and it backfired when the migrant's chilling background emerges. The Nashville Banner, the paper in Nashville, Tennessee, lied to the American people, tried to hang all of this on Trump, and Jayapal picked up the story, but it was all a grand fabricated lie. Never happened. So finally, it came out that it was a false story, but do you think that Jayapal apologized? Do you think the Nashville Banner apologized? No. They continue to stoke the fires of revolution against the law of the United States. So here's the question. If Democrats want to allow illegal aliens to come into this nation, just flood in here, then go to Congress and change the law. But they don't want to do that because they know that's not possible, so they're violating the law on a continual basis. If you're voting Democrat, you're voting for lawlessness in America. That's what it is, lawlessness. By the way, that story regarding from the Nashville Banner that Jayapal picked up was absolutely false. The illegal immigrant had a full medical prenatal care. We have documentation to show it. She was a citizen of Guatemala, arrested on multiple occasions for child abuse. She's wanted for there's an active warrant, I should say, for homicide. Now, on top of this, you have the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson, a week ago, erupted on a reporter that used the term illegal alien during a press briefing and slamming the phrase as racist and nasty. In a video posted a week ago Saturday to the official Instagram account of the Chicago mayor, the reporter asked Johnson about a report on city spending related to illegal aliens in Chicago that he was allegedly required to file with the White House. But instead of answering the question, because the Democrats are lawless, they're for lawlessness, they're for revolution against the order in America. And I think they probably want the shutdown to continue as long as Trump is in office. They want the government to shut down and crush the American people. They hate Donald Trump, and they hate the American people, and they hate the law. But instead of answering the question, back to Brandon Johnson, he didn't answer the question. He went off on the reporter saying, why do you call someone illegal? Well, Brandon Johnson, because the law states if they cross the border illegally, they're in a legal status. But that shows you that we have these Democratic leaders that despise law and order. This is not going to end well until people wake up to what's going on. Crossing the border illegally is a criminal offense, but Jay Appel, Democrat from Washington, Brandon Johnson in Chicago, and others, Representative Garcia, they don't like it that way, so they're actually putting not only bounties or allowing bounties to be put on the head of law enforcement, but they're creating a tracker so that people might track law enforcement. Now let's just break that down into something that's going on in your neighborhood. Let's just say, for example, that many people have crashed into your neighborhood and are robbing houses, taking things out of houses, and so this is going on in your gated community, your gated neighborhood. And law enforcement comes in to arrest these people, but instead of supporting the arresting of the illegals, you have an organization that says we're going to track the law enforcement so that you might be able to resist them. This is not only nuts, this is devilish, demonic. That's what it is. And the Democrat Party owns it all. This is not going to end well, and it's getting simply worse and worse. But added to that, Democrats have created ICE-free zones. Okay, let's break that down. ICE is immigration enforcement, law enforcement people. And so the Democrats are creating, Democratic Mayor Brandon Johnson created in Chicago law enforcement free zones. That is, we're not going to enforce the law. I personally, I just wonder how it is that anyone who would even, not even necessarily call yourself a Christian, but who would even want common decency, who even claims to stand for common decency, would stand behind the Democratic Socialist Party at this particular point. These are the Democratic Party leaders. And they're the ones who are creating chaos on the streets. And assassinations are going to happen again, such as what happened with Charlie Kirk, because no one's ratcheting down anything. They're simply going on and at this particular point putting targets on the back of law enforcement. Then you have the Democratic leader of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, says that ICE is harassing people for not being white. So they want to create simply a racial war. Let me ask J.B. Pritzker, how many people looking like you, and I'm speaking about white, looking like you, come across the border from Mexico? Well, none, of course. There are none, because that's just the Mexican culture. That's the South American culture. But he says ICE is running around the loop harassing people for not being white. You know what? Many years ago, I'm talking about the 1970s. I remember being from Arizona. I remember when Immigration and Customs Enforcement was rounding up, at that particular time, many illegal Mexicans who had come across the border to work. By the way, that's the Democrat fault also, to create minimum wages so high that, okay, as an employer, I can hire in my field people for maybe $1 to $2 an hour, don't have to pay the minimum wage. So that's created by the Democrats also. But be that as it may, they went around and started arresting many of the illegals, and the hue and cry from the liberals is, well, they simply want brown people. They simply want to take brown. No, the people who are making this a racial war are those in the minority communities and the liberals, such as J.B. Pritzker. It's not about simply arresting them because they are brown. It's because, of course, they're here illegally, Mr. Pritzker. Jasmine Crockett says the same thing. These are the leaders of the Democratic Party. We have come to a breaking point in America, and we're going to see it get a lot worse, especially if the Democrats continue to hold the American people hostage by keeping the government shut down. But there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, and that is that Democrats are lawless. The law of the United States is very clear, and our law is to be working through that system. And the law is that if an individual crosses the border illegally, he's to be incarcerated. And J.B. Pritzker may holler, well, we're just incarcerating because he's brown-skinned. But the truth of the matter is, they want lawlessness in America. That's the Democratic Party today.